Greetings, lore seekers, and welcome back to more Star Wars Legends lore. So, following on from the World Devastators, I thought it was only fitting that I talk about one of the vehicles produced by the World Devastators, the TIE D automated Starfighter. Now, this is a TIE series design, so it does have the iconic cockpit design and twin ion engines, as would be implied by the name, but these were a bigger departure from the entire TIE series, in that they were actually droid starfighters, utilising not living pilots but a droid brain made by Crybot Galactica. Now, these droid starfighters did suffer from the same problems that the Trade Federation and Separatist fighters would suffer from during their respective years, in that they would be able to be outwitted by living opponents. The advantage of these, however, was that they could pull off manoeuvres that even TIE interceptors couldn't do, due to Mach speeds not being able to affect the biological components of their pilots' brains. And they're also much cheaper to produce than the standard TIE LN starfighters. This meant that thousands of them could be fielded quite easily, and they could all be directed by the droid brain of the World Devastator ships. And they'd even have shielding. Yeah, that's right, shielding for a TIE series. A rarity, although it does happen with these ships. So, to actually get into the meat of it, it would have the twin ion engine design from CNR Fleet Systems. It would have no hyperdrive capacity, as it is a TIE range. It would have the same sort of solar panels, as well as the usual power reactions of the TIE range, although as you can see the wings are in a much different configuration from any previous TIE design. It does seem that they took inspiration from the default TIE design and also the interceptor range, but instead of having the pointed tips of the interceptor range, they were just basically rectangles. And it would also be equipped in terms of weapons with the traditional twin-link laser cannons that were customary on all TIE fighters. Now, officially it will be classed as a multi-environment attack fighter, considering as it could operate in both atmospheres and in space. The idea was the World Devastator would manufacture thousands of these damn little fighters and deploy them in mash Zerg-like tactics against the enemy, essentially overwhelming defenders and defences, and easily then being able to recycle any losses or destruction of enemy craft to produce yet more droid starfighters. This is one of the reasons why the World Devastators were so, as the name would imply, devastating. But enough about me marvelling at that machine. Let's talk about the operational history and development of the TIE D automated starfighter. So this was originally developed by one of the post-Endor warlords. Specifically in this case, General Arndor Lott, and partnering with CNR Fleet Systems, they came up with a design inspired by the slave rigging technology of the Katana fleet. In this way you would slave multiple starfighters to one single remote pilot. Now, unfortunately, this did have a severe limitation and proved to be quite ineffective, but the concept at least proved sound. Unfortunately, this was hilariously jammed by many New Republic and even other Imperial warlords of the Imperial Civil War era. That will eventually get its own video when I can get around to it. So, during 10AB1, when these fighters were massively deployed, they instead replaced the slave rigging technology with a Crybot Galactica A6 droid brain, which could be upgraded with many new tactics and other ways of operating, essentially to make it adapt over time to tactics and various other things, though this still did suffer from the same drawbacks as droid fighters did during the Clone Wars era. Now, the finalised version of this fighter debuted against the New Republic 6 years after the Battle of Endor, as a complement for the World Devastators, especially during the Battle of Mon Calamari. And as I say, these were employed for Zerg rush tactics to overwhelm and destroy New Republic starfighters, specifically their V and E-wing ranges, and their numbers very much worked in their favours. Even if the New Republic forces were able to, you know, destroy swaths of these droids, there'd be more to take its place. Hell, they even were so powerful they destroyed a Mandate 3 class dreadnought simply by overwhelming its defences. And then eventually, with the tide turning against the Empire and the destruction of the World Devastators, these fighters were eventually abandoned. This is mostly because they were able to be outwitted by sentient living pilots quite easily, meaning that the dream of an automated military force would remain quite outside the realms of the Galactic Empire. At least until they could get their hands on inteckment technology, which thankfully they never did, even if plans were in the works to do something with that. Oddly enough, as well, the TIE D fighters were also equipped with at least 1 day's worth of consumables. No cargo capacity, no crew capacity, and no passenger capacity. So it is a wonder as to why they would have these consumables. Perhaps it was to supply airdrops to Imperial forces on the planet and provide them with much needed rations or ammunition, perhaps for some of their weapons. I can't really say, we'd have to ask the designers of CNR Fleet Systems. Unfortunately, with a lot of things in that time, the engineers probably will not be wanting to answer too many questions without, you know, possibly war crimes being brought against them for their part in the reign of the Resurgent era. But I'm about to go off on a tangent on that, so I'll bring the episode to a close there. If you have anything you would like me to add to this video, perhaps leave a comment down below, maybe get a discussion going. As always, you'll find my sources listed in the description, and if you haven't already, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and perhaps sharing this around. That being said, take care, have a good day, and may the Lord keepers ever be in your favour.